Hello, can you hear me? Please confirm on the chat. Perfect. And then I would like to welcome you on my webinar where we're going to discuss Google Data Studio and how it can help you with your marketing efforts. So first, a few words about me. My name is Anna and I have been working in marketing for the previous 4 years. Currently, I'm a growth manager at Skalski Growth, where we help small and mid-sized companies with lead generation, website and landing page development, as well as conversion optimization, marketing automation, and business analytics, which is what we are going to discuss today. And just to tell you some more personal information, when I'm not focused on finding new ways to generate leads, you can usually find me baking cookies or exploring space. But that's probably enough about me. Now let's go straight to what we are going to discuss today. So firstly, I would like to give you some arguments why you should use Google Data Studio and how it can help you with preparing reports and automating your reporting efforts. And then we will go to the main points. So I will show you how to create your first dashboard during a live demo in Data Studio. After that, we will take a while to learn how we can share prepared reports with clients and our coworkers. And after that, I will also give you some tips on how you can connect data sources from sources like Facebook or LinkedIn ads that aren't native Google products, and because of that aren't available as native integrations in Data Studio. And at the end, we are going to see some examples of useful dashboards that you might find helpful as an inspiration for your future Data Studio dashboards. And at the end, we will finish with a short Q&A session. So if you came with any questions in mind, or perhaps you will think of any during my presentation, there will be time to ask them. So now let's go straight to exploring Data Studio features. So firstly, probably not many of you like to prepare reports, as not many marketers do. On the one hand, we all know that it's very important to have proper analytics and that it helps us to make better marketing decisions. But on the other hand, it can be often very time consuming. And this is due to the fact that to prepare a report, we often have to extract data from many different sources like Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook ads, and whichever tools you may also use in your marketing. And it's not enough to just extract this data, then you have to format it and analyze it. So it's very useful to have a tool like Data Studio that takes at least 50% of that work of your back. So how exactly Data Studio can help you with all that? Firstly, when using Google Data Studio, you are able to connect data from different marketing sources in one place. And that includes Google Analytics, Google AdWords, for example. So you no longer will have to go to these tools and do exports to sheets. And then when you have your data connected, you can visualize it and make your reports interactive by adding filters and data controls. And those two previous steps allow you to automate your marketing reporting, because you no longer will have to, for example, prepare weekly reports by extracting your data and preparing charts. This will all be done. You will just have to adjust your filters. And thanks to that, you will be able to easily identify important changes and trends in your data, because it's all there without having to do any work to get it to the desired format. So When we know how Data Studio can be helpful to us, you may ask why specifically this tool? Because there are many tools that allow you to create marketing dashboards on the market, but some of them can be very complicated or they can be also crazy expensive. So, what features make Data Studio special? Firstly, you got clear and very simple interface that is very user friendly. It can be also very easily customized through drag and drop functionalities. For the third special function is that it has a native integration with multiple data sources. So you can easily connect data from tools such as Google Ads, Google Analytics, Google Sheets, or Google Search Console, and many others. So all native Google products, basically. But if that's not enough for you, there are also many partner integrations, and we will discuss one of it later during this webinar if you would like to know how you can connect, for example, Facebook ads. And another great thing about Data Studio is that it has real-time data. So all you have to do to get the newest stuff is hit the refresh button, and you will have the most current information about your dashboard, about your data from Google Analytics or perhaps Google AdWords. And you can also share your reports and easily collaborate on them with your coworkers and team members, and share just the visuals without the possibility to edit with your clients. And probably the best part is that it's free. So you can use it free of charge, no matter if you have a company Google Suite account or you are using your personal Google account. You can use it both ways. So now we know why Data Studio is a great tool, but how to actually create your first dashboard. Shortly, we will move to a live demo during which I will tell you how to add a data source, how to move throughout the interface, and also how you can create charts and what things you should keep in mind when doing that, and also how you can add interactivity to your dashboard. So how to make it, how to be able to filter it for choosing data periods, or perhaps for specific devices or campaigns. And at the end, we will take a second to take a look at the styling options, so how we can make our dashboard visually appealing. So now let's move to the screen sharing and Google Data Studio itself. Here is how the home screen of Google Data Studio looks. You can start creating dashboards by accessing this link, or you can also choose Google Data Studio on your Google Drive as a new element. And here you have a few options. You can either start with a blank template or choose one of the templates provided by Google, but for the purposes of this webinar, we will go with a blank. But for the future reference for you, some of these templates can be very helpful, like this template for AdWords. It has all the basic metrics there, so to make your life easy, you might want just to use a dashboard prepared by Google for you. But for now, let's start with blank. And first thing we need to do to access the dashboard and all the features, we need to add our data source. And if you are accessing this Data Studio account for the first time, you will have only sample Google data here available, but you can easily add your own data source by clicking here and choosing a Google product you would like to connect. So this can be, for example, Google Analytics, Google Ads, Google Ads Manager, or even Google Sheets, where you can have imported data from your CRM or something like that. So all of these things can be easily connected with Google Data Studio. But for the purposes of this webinar, we will go with sample Google Analytics data. And after you connect your source, all you have to do is to click Add to Report. And now we get access to all the available options. If you perhaps would like to use on your dashboard more than one data source, so for example, connect data from Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and perhaps Facebook ads, you can manage your added data resources here and add new ones just by clicking Add a new data source. But for now, this one source will be enough for us, and let's explore options that we have here. So the most important part is here, and those are all the type of charts available. You have tables, scorecards that can present the most important metrics, a time series that can present how chosen metrics change in time, bar charts, pie charts, geomap if you perhaps would like to display how the traffic of your website is divided by countries, and also some more complicated charts like pivot tables. You can here also add data controls to your charts. So when we will be later adding interactivity, we will use those to add a possibility to control the data range and filter control to, for example, be able to filter our data for particular devices. Here we can also add text elements and objects like rectangles or circles that are helpful with creating labels to our charts. And we will do all that later. Here on the toolbar on the right, you can manage all the options of the look of your chart. So you can specify how big your wall should be. Custom what it comes with is quite small, so you probably would like to extend that a little bit, depending on how many charts you would like to place on your dashboards. And here you can also control how exactly your themes should look. So you can choose by options provided by Google, which is either simple, which is white, or simple dark, which has dark background with light fonts. But for now, let's start with simple, and then we will play a little bit with customization after we actually create some charts. So let's say that we would like to see how the traffic on our website performs in time. And for this, we will choose time series. After a second, it will appear on our dashboard. And we can move it around as we please, just by dragging on it. And also change its size by dragging on its corners, like so. And now let's take a look at the options we have available for these charts on our toolbar on the right. Firstly, you need to make sure that you have added a time dimension. If you are using Google Analytics or Google AdWords as your data source, it should be automatically here. But if, for example, you connected a Google Sheet with data from your CRM, it might not be automatically put there, so you will have to do it manually. And why is that important? Because otherwise, if you will later on add the data range control, this tool won't know for which data it is supposed to work. So you need that specified for the data control to work. You can also add breakdown dimension if you would, for example, like to see the sessions by device. But for now, we will leave it without any dimension, as we will play with dimensions by adding filters. And you can also add more than one metric for this chart. So you could, for example, add here new users or conversions. But you need to keep in mind if, for example, you would add conversions, it would be much less of than that sessions. So if you would leave it just like that, it would appear only as a very thin line here. So if you are adding a new metric, let's do it here. with e-commerce conversion rate, for example. You need to specify that you want this second series to appear on the opposite axis, and then it will become visible. But for now, let's get rid of that. And let's say that we would like to see how this data compares to the data from the previous period. And it's very simple to do it. You just have to choose here that you want to see the data compared with the previous period. And it will automatically appear on a chart as a lighter line. So you can see how our traffic on our website looked for the previous 28 days. Now, what else we can do with this chart? If you, for example, have some specific Google Analytics segments, like excluding some parts of your website, or you perhaps want to see just sessions on your blog, not the whole website, and you have a segment for that in Google Analytics, you can add it here. But if you haven't got such segments ready in your Google Analytics, you don't have to go there and do so. You can add filters straight from this tab by clicking Add New Filter. And here you can choose if you want it to be included on the chart. So with that, you will only see this data that you specify here, or if you want to exclude some parts of your data. So here you can, for example, choose source and specify that you would like to exclude source that contains something. And for example, let's say that we would like to exclude referral. And this will adjust the data that we see here. Okay. And now just let's play with another chart type to see how it works. Let's say that we would like to see how many conversions we get per day. So let's choose a bar chart. And make it similar in size to the previous chart. Here automatically it was divided by medium, but let's say that we want it by date as above. And that we don't want to see sessions but conversions, which if you have an e-commerce store might be transactions. And it is what we will going to choose here. And now you can see how many transactions you had in particular days. And that's basically it for our two first charts. And now let's add some interactivity to them. So to be able to control data ranges, all you have to do is click here and place this box where you would like it to appear in the final version of the dashboard. And you can either leave automatic data range, or if you want your dashboard always to open with a particular data range applied, you can choose it here. So for example, let's say that we want to always see last 30 days. If we specify it here, it will appear as that on the final version of the dashboard. Another thing you can do is add a filter control. And you can move it around just any other element and specify its size. And let's say that we want to see this data breakdown by device. So how many, not here, but here, how much traffic we get from specific devices like computers, mobile devices, and such. And it is important to have a metric here, especially if we were to use another filter. So let's do it to just see it later on. And let's choose source medium. Because if you have many source mediums for your website, if you don't have a metric and it isn't sorted by the metric, you might see some irrelevant sources later on in this filter tab, and it might be hard to control your data. So now before we move into styling, let's see how it works in real life. So you just click the view button on top, and now you can modify the data range. So for example, let's see that we want to see just the last 7 days. And our data is automatically adjusted for just the previous 7 days. And we can also see it for the device category. So let's say that we want to see this data only for mobile. So we click mobile only here. And now we see data for the previous 7 days just for the mobile. And here you could also specify source and medium. As you can see, we got quite a few here. So without it being sorted by traffic, it might be hard to manage. So it's very useful. And this is basically how it works. You can add as many filter controls as you like, for example, also for campaigns or countries, depending on what is important to your business or your client's business. Now let's take a while to make it look a bit prettier. For this chart, what you also would like to do is change the sorting by date. And making ascending so it would match the trend on the chart above. Yep. And now for the style options. If you want to style particular elements, you need to mark them, and then you will have the styling available for the particular element. But if you want to style a whole dashboard, you just click in an empty area and then you have the theme options available. So let's say that we would, for example, want to make the background a little bit darker. So we can choose the background color here, and that we would like the our secondary color to be indifferent. So for example, let's make it more blue. And here you can also specify your chart palette. So for example, let's say that we want our charts to be red instead of blue, and that we want them to have a background, and that we want them to have a shadow to be more visually appealing, and that perhaps we also want them to have rounded corners. And as you can see, our dashboard is already a bit coming together. To make it even better, I would recommend you would add also some data labels. So you can do so just by choosing a rectangular element, for example, and it will be automatically the secondary color that we chose before. But perhaps it isn't the best match, so let's choose the same that we chose for the series. And now you can next. For that we don't want background, so let's make it transparent and adjust the size and name it website traffic. Yep. And this is basically it. If you want your dashboards to contain more charts and more information, more filters, you can of course do so. You can also say it a little bit better and add more information. You can basically do whatever you want here. It just take a little bit time to play with it and adjust to the available options and how it works. If you want to customize such dashboard even more, you can add here your logo or the logo of your client if you are preparing such dashboard for your client. But now let's go back for a second to the presentation and on how we can share this dashboard after we have created it. You have three ways of sharing your report. You can either do it by link or send an invite to an email or send a PDF on a scheduled date every week, for example. So now let's take a look at each of those options. You do it by clicking the plus icon with a person in the top bar here. And here is example from our organization. So if I, for example, wanted to send a link to my teammates on Slack or any other chat tool, so they could collaborate with me, I would set here that anyone with the link at my organization can edit my dashboard, and this way they would be able to work with me on that dashboard. But perhaps if I wanted them just to give me feedback on how it looks and how it functions, they could I could give them only the view option, so they could give me feedback. Another option is send the invite by email. If, for example, you want to share it just with one team member or with your client. With your client, you need to keep with mind which access level are you giving him, because the edit access could confuse him, and just the viewing access level is the best in that case. You can also add the short message to add context while you are sharing a report with someone. And the last option is scheduling PDF deliveries. You do it by clicking the clock icon in the top bar. And here you can specify who should receive such a report and how often. So for example, I would like to send such report in PDF to myself and perhaps other team members weekly on Monday, so they could and I could take a look back at what happened last week and how, for example, our website or e-commerce store performed. And that's about it for sharing the report. Now, what to do if you would like to add some data from non-Google sources like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter ads. Unfortunately, there is no free solution for that, but there are many partner connections that you can use. For example, Supermetrics, which is what I use in my company. It is quite pricey but very useful, especially if you work in an agency and you often have to extract data. This tool is very helpful. So you have two options with it. You can either use it just for Data Studio, and then you can connect sources like Facebook ads directly from the Data Studio interface. So let me share my screen for a second. Yep, you just go here, manage your added data sources, and it will be available without installing anything or even registering on the website. Yeah, you can use it connector just by clicking here, select and connecting your Facebook account, and it will be free for 13 days, so you can explore how you like such integration and how helpful it is for your business. And after that, you will have to decide if you want to purchase a plan. And for $19 per month, you can connect up to 3 ad accounts per network. So it is quite useful for small businesses or small
Hi guys, sorry we have some technical issues. If you could give us please like 5 minutes and we should be back.
Can you hear me again? Great, thank you, and I'm very sorry for that. So we are at Google Docs add-on for Supermetrics. It is very helpful when you need to extract a lot of data for one-time analysis from many different sources, and it can be also used to connect a Google Doc to Data Studio, as Google Docs is a native integration and it's free. And how it works in this tool. After installing such add-on for your Google Docs, you basically have a possibility to launch such toolbox in the add-ons section, and there you can choose a source of data. So for example, like we did here with Facebook, choose for which period you would like your data to be exported and which metrics you would like to see. So for example, we here have amount spent, link clicks, impressions, and leads, which give us a base to any other important metrics that we can calculate then, like CTR or cost per lead. And we would like to split them by choosing dimensions such as date, which is very important if you are exporting this data later onto Data Studio, campaign name and ad set name. You could even make it more specific by importing also the information about particular ad. And then you just click the get data to table. And with this add-on, you can schedule it to be refreshed every day or perhaps every hour, depending on the plan you choose. And then you simply connect this such sheet to Google Data Studio as a new source. And if, for example, it can replace you the Facebook connector, and it will work just like Google Analytics or Google AdWords. You will be able to use all of those metrics and dates as the data dimension to be able to control the data range in the top bar of the Data Studio interface. And that's about it. So as I said, this partner integration is very helpful if you are using many different ad accounts, and I would really recommend taking a look at such tool. And now for some sample dashboards. Let me share my screen again. Yep. We will have a few examples here. First would be for Google Analytics for website and e-commerce store performance. Then we will have a sample dashboard for Google Ads, and after that we will have a dashboard of a few channels that connect Google AdWords and Facebook data that we prepared in Supermetrics as I just showed you. So firstly, let's start with Google Ads. And here we have a sample report that you could use every day in your organization if you want to analyze your website performance. Here we have a view for e-commerce. Here we used scorecards, so one of the charts options in Data Studio to present the most important metrics as the number of transactions, revenue per purchase, and conversion rate. And we added it as just I added on my first chart during the live demo, the possibility of it being compared to the previous period. So for example, here you can see that the trend is negative, and perhaps you would have to take some action to improve your number of transactions and by that also your revenue in your e-commerce store. Here you can see how the revenue looks in time. And here you can see a mini funnel of how many sessions turned into transactions. We also added a table where you can see which product category is responsible for the most revenue. In such table, you can easily sort your data just by clicking on chosen column. So now, for example, we can see which category has the most adds to carts. And here we can also see which source brings us the most revenue. You can also see, for example, which source has the best conversion rate. So perhaps you should focus on such source. And you can do it with any metric here. And I think that these parts are helpful for any e-commerce store to have. Here you can also filter it by device category, as we did on our sample dashboard, to see, for example, how these things look for mobile devices. Sometimes it might take a while to load, unfortunately. Yep, so we can see that there is a significant, that there is not that many transactions just on mobile. And we can go back to the view of all categories just by clicking here. And for example, if you would like to see a performance of any particular campaign, for example, if you are using web push notifications and each of your campaign has UTMs, and let's say that one of such campaigns was named AW Apparel, by clicking that you want only to see that, you will see how much sales such campaign actually bring you. So just let's give it a second to load. Yep. And here you see that from such campaign, you had 51 transactions and $8,000 revenue, so not bad. Now we'll move to another part of this dashboard. As I will show you just quickly how to do so, because sometimes one page might not be enough and you might want to split some metrics by category to different pages. So you dare just do it here by adding a page, and you can rename those pages, so then you would see here what they are about. Yep. And here we have some of the most important metrics for our website. So here we are exploring traffic, conversion rate. So as it is an e-commerce website, it is also transaction for us. How much traffic we get from particular countries, and what is good about Data Studio, that it is just not just an image. You can actually see data for particular days by moving around on your charts or on such map, how much sessions actually came from particular countries. And here we also have a table with the list of the most popular pages and a breakdown in pie charts for our most popular traffic sources. So I think such dashboard would be quite useful if you have a website and want to be able to monitor the most important metrics in just one view. What about Google Ads? Here we also prepared a sample dashboard for Google Ads, where you can see the most important metrics in terms of traffic, conversion, and cost. We also used scorecards with the comparison to previous period. We also have some charts that we use the time series that we use also during the demo for that, but we just put two different metrics on it. So you can also see that. And here we also have a table with the specific campaigns where we use the most important metrics. And here you can also use a heat map for choosing the metrics to be able to see which campaign actually has, for example, the most conversions or the best conversion rate. without having to sort it. So it is also quite useful. And as for the multi-channel report, where we connect data from Facebook and AdWords, here you can see overview of all marketing efforts. So here we have cost of our whole marketing, so the combined data from Google Ads and Facebook Ads with using the data blend function, as also cost per conversion, conversion rate, and the number of all conversion, as well as those metrics on some charts. To be able to control the most executive summary of our marketing, as well as it being broken down to particular channels to be able to compare which one performs better. So it's also useful to not only split your data between dashboards, but also have one that sums up your whole marketing efforts. And that is about it for our presentation of sample dashboards. Now we'll move to the question and answer sessions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And I see that Carla has already asked why sometimes we see a little difference of data in analytics and data studio. You shouldn't see such a difference if you are using Google Analytics as a source. It should be the same on Data Studio and Google Analytics. Perhaps in Google Analytics you are viewing your data with a segment that you haven't added to your charts in Google Data Studio. Or perhaps you are viewing your data on a different view in Google Analytics than the view you added to your charts. And generally, there should be no differences between your data in different sources and Data Studio, as it's using those sources to present this data. So there is probably some issue with configuration. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to let me know. And if there aren't any other questions, or perhaps if you are just typing, I will wait a second. But I would also like to let you know that you can contact me by email to ask your questions after this webinar, and I will do my best to answer. So there is also such options if you can't think of anything right now. So if that is all in terms of questions, I would like to thank you very much for joining my webinar. And as I said, feel free to contact me by email. And yes, I think that the video from this webinar will be posted and probably emailed to you after this webinar. Perfect. So if there isn't anything else, that's all for me. Thank you all very much for joining, and have a nice day.